Thanks for joining us. And today we're going to talk about Kriya Yoga and escaping the wheel of incarnation. So somebody recently asked me why I do Kriya Yoga. Isn't it to escape the wheel of incarnation? And this is an interesting idea, the idea of this recurring wheel of incarnation, sometimes called the wheel of karma. And in Kriya Yoga, in certain Kriya Yoga schools, this is a very prevalent idea. And this really comes out of Hinduism and some thinkings in India around Buddhism about incarnation and needing to reincarnate. And the essence of this is the idea of desire. Kama is what it's called in Sanskrit. And the idea that unfulfilled desires will compel one to incarnate over and over again until those desires are fulfilled. And so in some Kriya Yoga schools, they've talked about challenges with meditation, that one has desire, and then because one has desires, one is distracted from having an internal experience, what we call pratyahara in yoga, of getting internalized in meditation. So, a new student not being able to meditate, their mind scattered around, and then the explanation being, well, they have so much desire and so much subsequent karma that they're not able to focus and internalize and get into a meditative state. And the yogic idea as well about samskaras, and samskaras are considered karmic seed tendencies. So the idea in this yogic view is that if you have unfulfilled desires, they create these karmic seeds which are then stored in your subtle bodies and need to be worked out either through physical means or by incarnating over and over again to fulfill those desires. And some Kriya Yoga schools have taken this idea and said, okay, you have a whole bunch of karmic seed tendencies, these samskaras. The way that you can get rid of them is by using Kriya Yoga, burning those karmic seeds in the fires of wisdom. And so in Kriya Yoga, we use the chakra system and then a particular way of doing an intentional breathing, which is called Kriya Pranayama. And so some schools will say, you're burning up your karma by doing Kriya Yoga. Meaning that as you do Kriya Yoga, these karmic seeds are being roasted in the fires of wisdom, disappearing, and you're no longer desiring those unfulfilled desires, that they get disintegrated or they evaporate in the Kriya Yoga process. And so some Kriya Yoga schools have said, everyone on this earth needs to live about 1 million years for them to spiritually evolve to the point where they can ascend this realm or ascend to enlightenment. And so this idea, a very popular and famous Kriya yogi, talked about this idea and said that as an alternative to this, one could do Kriya Yoga and accelerate one's spiritual evolution. And this idea as well that this writer talked about was that one repetition of Kriya Pranayama equaled 1 year of earthly evolution, earthly spiritual evolution. And so the idea being that one could do 1 million Kriya and then one would be free from the fetters of incarnation. All desires would be burned up and one would be free. But it isn't karma or desire that is creating challenges in meditation, it is breath. So we know the average resting breath rate for humanity has increased almost 3-fold since 70 years ago. And at that time, many years ago, folks could sit down and do a simple following the breath technique, and then they could get into a meditative state. In fact, if you just probably sat around and didn't do anything and were just breathing slower than normal, one would naturally go into a meditative state. But this is no longer the case. We're breathing in general about 12 to 15 breaths per minute. And a result of breathing so quickly is that we are not able to get into a meditative state because we are not able to stimulate or activate the parasympathetic nervous system. Now, if you know anything about Kriya Yoga and the stuff that I talk about with heart rate variability, resonance breathing, and so on, is that when you bring your breath below a certain threshold, you end up slowing down your heart rate and bringing your breath and your heart rate into resonance with each other. As a result, what happens inside is you get into an internalized state. It's stimulating your parasympathetic nervous system, right? The rest and digest aspect of your central nervous system. And it can bring you internal. And so the essence of Kriya Yoga, or the real benefit, the most leverage in Kriya Yoga, is the fact that it brings this breath below a certain threshold, which we know 7 breaths per minute. And if you are breathing at that threshold, then you will get into a meditative state. And this is why Kriya Yoga is effective. It isn't because it burns up karma. It isn't because it reduces desire, because none of those things matter. They have no effect in going into a meditative state. Now, certainly, if your mind is scattered and you're upset about something, you are preoccupied, right? But what's happening when you're preoccupied and emotional about something is your sympathetic nervous system is stimulated. You're getting cortisol going through your body, and your heart rate is up. And your blood pressure may be up as well, right? So the genius of Kriya Yoga is not that it's burning up karma, but that it's bringing you into an internalized state by slowing down your breath rate and your heart rate, bringing those into resonance with each other. So I have another video that I did, I don't know, it was a couple of years ago, talking about the myth of 1 million Kriya. And that is the idea that comes out of, certain Kriya Yoga schools where they say you need to be doing 1 million Kriya over successive years, and that way you will be free. Now, we know that there are some folks that took this advice and did 1 million Kriya and then didn't have the expected result, right? So Kriya Yoga, the claim that Kriya Yoga is burning up your karma is questionable. We know for sure that if Kriya Yoga is done correctly, it will get you into an internalized state because it leverages the biggest handle in the room, which is intentional breathing, and all of that brings you into an internalized state, and you get into meditation. Things start to settle and you get into a process of integration, and that is really what Kriya Yoga and meditation is about. So when people ask me if I do Kriya Yoga to get off the wheel of incarnation and overcome the suffering of successive rebirths, I say no, that is not why I do Kriya Yoga. In fact, I do Kriya Yoga to get into an internalized state so integration can happen. And the integration leads to an internal transformation and inner harmony, which is the essence of spiritual development. So if you have any questions about this video, feel free to send me an email at info@modernkriya.com. Also check our website at modernkriya.com and our YouTube channel. So thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time.